All right, to our NHL draft rankings, coming in at number 7 from the London Knights, left defenseman Sam Dickinson. They say a jack of all trades does everything well. What do you call someone who does everything exceptionally well?
A master of all trades. The saying is jack of all trades, master of none. Well, so if someone did everything exceptionally well, they would be a master of all trades. However, Ross,
And a
uh,
jack of none.
yeah, and a jack of none. I would not put Sam Dickinson as a master of all trades. However, if there's one thing that stands out for him that you want to stand out for a defenseman, it's skating. This kid is a very good skater. There's no denying that. He's a powerful skater, and EP really kind of spreads out how they feel about him. They awarded him the second best four-way mobility, third best transition D-man, and fourth best neutral zone defender. So you sprinkle in a bit of talent all the way around the ice with Sam Dickinson. He's got the size that you want at 6'3", 203 pounds. So on the right side of 6, on the right side of 200 pounds for a defenseman. He's a left shot. In 66 games last season with the London Knights, he had 18 goals, 52 assists, good for 70 points. How about that whopping plus 56 rating? You'll love to see that, Ross.
That's second in the OHL last season, only to Sens prospect Matthew Andonovski.
Oh, actually, wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were pulling a joke on me there. That's impressive. And then in the playoffs, he kept things going points wise, 13 points in 18 OHL playoff games. Of course, the London Knights lost the Mem Cup to the Saginaw Spirit. So that just makes the whole Dickinson versus Parekh debate even further interesting here.
Well, Sam Dickinson did score the game tying goal in that final. Like, he was the best player on the ice despite the
and
loss.
had an assist. So like he showed up for sure. Sam Dickinson really excels on the power play, Ross. He had 28 power play points. 11 of his 18 goals were on the power play. So this is a guy that there's a reason that he's ranked so high. And NHL scouts, I think they look at a player like this and they see a lot of projectable tools that will allow him to eventually develop into a top 4 NHL defenseman.
He comes in with an average of 7.6, but there's still a wide range considering how high we are in the draft. McKean's has him at 3 on their list. For Bob McKenzie, he's 6. He's 6 for Wheeler. He's 8 for Button, 9 for Peters, and 10th for elite prospects. But teams are just going to salivate over the physical package and then what the offensive upside is in all situations. The fact that you mentioned he dominates on the power play and he's a solid penalty killer that I think is going to improve and at the NHL level is going to be able to fill that role. He's a player that coaches love, but this year and the way things work in London is the veterans get the most minutes. He was in a second pair role almost all year. So does that worry you that, he hasn't gone up against the top competition? No, that should not be a worry because within games, obviously, he's going to be facing that. The way the London Knights dominated the postseason, he was a huge part of that. So you're not worried about the competition level, but I think it says even more that he's able to put up these counting stats without playing the 26, 27 minutes that some other defensemen got to play. He did his role perfectly. He's going to be a low maintenance player that you're able to stick in your lineup. I don't love the comparison because I think Jake Sanderson's more dynamic when he has the puck on his stick. But in terms of a trajectory that is just going the right way and a low maintenance style that you will not have to worry about him if you're a coach. Sure, there's things he has to work on, but he's motivated enough to do it himself. And you just have him in a top 4 role for the next 10 years. That is as safe a top 4 pick as there is in the draft. Top 4 defenseman, I should say, not selection in this draft. Lots of good D. But Pilsy, you know teams are going to salivate on that. This is the type of player that I think we could see off the board early. Like, I'm talking Anaheim, even though they're loaded on the left. I'm talking probably more so Columbus. And then it gets interesting at Utah because Montreal likely to take a forward. But that all, even though, funny enough, Sam Dickinson, his whole family is all Habs fans. So funny that I kind of just glossed over that accidentally. But Pillsy, like, what would you say the biggest thing for him to work on is? Because we're just basically giving him glowing reviews off the board so far.
Yeah, and for good reason, Ross. There's a lot to like about Sam Dickinson. I would say what you're worried about with Sam Dickinson is maybe a bit of the hockey sense. Like Will Scouch did a video on him and showed just a bunch of examples where Dickinson gets the puck and instead of scanning and making a good outlet pass or finding a smart, efficient way to get the puck out of the zone, sometimes he'll just be like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this, and just flip it out. And if you do that once in a while, that's fine, but you're essentially turning it over and then waiting for the opponent to rush you and then hoping to have a better plan of attack next time, which isn't the best situation for a guy that is going to be playing a lot of power play, going to be playing a lot of big minutes as he develops here. So you'd like to see him kind of, unless he's panicked and in pressure, sure, you can flip it out. But if you've got time and space, try to make a better play there. And then David St. Louis, obviously, you guys know I reference his videos a lot on his Let's Watch video, or it was a film room article, rather. He was saying, and this quote kind of really hit for me, Ross. He says, Dickinson reacts to the game more than he anticipates it. Now, that's not necessarily like a giant red flag. Like you want to be able to react. Like hockey's not a game of it's not like baseball where it's like one action, a reaction, and you can kind of just base it off that. It's constant flow, so you have to react sometimes. But you want your top defensemen to be able to anticipate and to be able to have that hockey sense where they can read what's going on with the play and they can already kind of calculate how things are going to turn out, where the puck's going to be, where the most important spot they need to defend is. And it just seems with Dickinson, he's kind of like, he's just going with what's in front of him right away, and then he's going to deal with what happens after the fact, which, again, I'm not trying to say this is a glaring issue. It's just something where you want your top defenseman to have that better sense of awareness and preparation for how the play is going to unfold.
You'll notice I mentioned top 4 defensemen when I was talking. That's the thing. It could just be that's holding him back from being a no doubt top pair defenseman, which he could very well be, a guy who plays almost like Drew Doughty, where he's maybe not putting up that offensive production, but he's able to play 27, 28 minutes in all situations. Now, Pilsy, I look at him as a 3-tier projectability. Like, yeah, there's that safe top 4 defenseman. I like how elite prospects use Noah Hannafin. I think that's a good example of a guy who maybe doesn't get the notoriety around the league unless he's on the trade market. Obviously, there was a bit more talk about him this season, but he's just, reliable. But then there's like a couple steps up that I think he could reach. Like, could he be at the Brady Shea level? Can he get his defensive game that good? He'll have to commit to it, but I think in the London system, he could. And then we're seeing the high end is people thinking he could be like Alex Pietrangelo. He's already got the size. He uses his physicality. We haven't even mentioned that part, but at the start of the year, he was listed at 190, and he's 15 pounds up already. And at a 6'3" frame, you'd think he could be playing at 215 potentially. And then you're like, okay, this guy might be a shutdown defenseman if he can maneuver his game or evolve it when he gets the next level. This gap is so tight between all the defensemen at this top end range, and we know that Dave Poulin and the Sens have said that hockey sense is among the top things they look for. Well, this guy's smart, I'll tell you that much. Yesterday at during an interview with TSN's Mark Masters, Sam Dickinson said that he's spoken quite a bit with the Ottawa Senators, and he said that it's gone really well. He says it was one of the more intense interviews, knowing that there's been some talk about him heading to Ottawa as well. Thought he did really good job in the interview. And this is the line that kind of makes a tear come to your eye based on what we've been through these last 20 years, Pilsy. You see the front office at the Combine, the Sens front office. It's a very well-run organization. It would be an absolute honor to go there at 7.
Love it. And I mean, that's the thing. You can tell he's a good kid. When you've got a defenseman that can skate with size in a good program too, like the London Knights, Ross, you mentioned he wasn't exactly getting all the top minutes there. I think next season could be a really huge step in his development path. And if you're a team that has a top prospect, you want them in a prestigious program. The London Knights are the upper echelon of prestigious programs in the OHL. I would even argue they are the crown jewel program in the OHL. So that's where you want them to be. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Ottawa Senators to be attached to this guy, right? You got Michael Landauer and Steve Staios are OHL guys. He hogs a lot of the spotlight in the OHL as far as defensemen go, except for another guy we're going to get to. And you mentioned it. Pooley talks about size, speed, good character. Sam Dickinson's got it all. And if you look at the industry chatter of EP's guide where they talk about scouts, they're so divided on him. Like some are like, oh, this kid's the real package. You guys at EP have him too low. Hockey guys love him. And then other scouts are like, I'm worried about that hockey sense. I'm worried if he's not able to figure it out, then he's just going to be a safe, projectable two-way defenseman. And that's where
every team needs him though, Pills.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like that's not meant to be a negative thing. It's just like, if you're spending a top 10 pick on a guy, you might have aspirations more than a second pair two-way defenseman, right? And that's where you start to value, okay, as a guy like Sam Dickinson, are you leaving more talent and upside on the table when you draft a guy like him? And then the second part is, do you care? Like who cares how good all these other players are if you get your stable, steady, big, mobile defenseman? Does it really matter? That's the question.
And the answer will be had on draft night. But if your team took Sam Dickinson, you're in good hands on the left side going forward. Sam Dickinson comes in number 7 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings with a 7.6.